Welcoming back to the channel for the second time, we are having Lyle and TJ from the Marine Layer podcast. If you don't know who they are, which I'm sure if you're watching this, you do know, you can catch them on basically every social media platform there is. They give insightful commentary about the Mariners. They also will interview players as well and other media members, members of the organization, prospects, pretty much anyone you can think of. They probably are either going to have on their channel or already have, so go check them out if you haven't already. So yeah, that just makes really great content. We're going to go into a little bit of just kind of what they're doing right now, a bit more of their backstory with Marine Layer. But first, thanks Lyle and TJ for coming back on the channel for the second time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on, Jake. You left out, I think, one of the biggest things that we do, and that's obscenely yell about Kyle Tucker more than any
Yeah.
podcast in America.
Yeah. I mean, I would have put that in. However, he just got traded. So the dream is like half done. I know Lyle's keeping a little bit for the 2026 offseason, a little bit of hope alive that he might sign over here. But, it kind of feels like it might be the end of an era, might I say? Or are you still want to hold on, I think?
Oh no, if anything, the odds have gone up. Think about this.
Yeah.
He's not in the AL West. He's not in the AL West anymore. What happens if the Cubs lose and they're forced to trade the guy? What do they care if they trade him in the AL West? Everybody, I just said for our podcast that's going to be out on Wednesday, for people that want to hop on to see me shed tears and mourn over Kyle Tucker, that's not happening because the spin zone is the odds have gone up. So sorry, people. Sorry to let you down.
Nice. I mean, hey, what's your take, TJ? Because I feel like a lot of this comes from Lyle's point of view. So where are you at with Tucker?
The odds have gone up. Like, he's right. I think it's hard to get around that fact. It's because the only thing that was really the detriment of the Mariners acquiring Kyle Tucker, besides money, but we're not going to be here talking about money because that's a pretty given issue at this point. But in terms of like actually trading him, and the idea originated, what Lau brought up last April, at the end of April last year, which was the Mariners were going to trade for Kyle Tucker. Was it unrealistic that they were going to trade with the Houston Astros for their best player? Depends on the person. Not for us, but for a majority of Mariner fans, I think they would have thought that trading with the Astros would be this asinine ask, which in some logical sense makes sense. But now that he's a Cub, what would stop him?
Yeah.
Like Lyle said, let's say they go like 40-60 in the first 100 games. He's getting traded. If he hasn't signed an extension at that point, they would be crazy not to trade him. You trade him, and then you re-sign him in the offseason. It's like when Chapman, the Yankees did that with Chapman in 2016.
Yeah.
Like it's a strategy that nets you prospects, and you could still get the guy back in free agency. So like the odds have gone up.
Yeah. Well, hey, we will see when it comes to either middle of next year or 2026 winter. Now, the 2025 winter has not been very fortunate for us Mariner fans, considering literally nothing's happened, but you guys have been pretty busy. So you guys both attended the ASU versus Iowa State game in Dallas to watch your alma mater win the Big 12 championship. Sure, that was a really fun experience. So yeah, just kind of go over how was that experience for you guys? Such a big stadium, watching your alma mater raise a really cool trophy there.
It was a big stadium. You're right. You got that detail right. I wish it was more full. I feel like that stadium is built for Cowboy games and Cowboy games only, because everyone else that goes in there, it's just it just doesn't really feel right. But the game itself, man, was unbelievable. It's going to be hard to top an experience like that, because even if they do that again in the future, it's just going to be, it happens for the second time, which is never as cool as the first.
Yep.
It was all great until I lost my voice. And then I had to deal with the raspy voice the rest of the week. Yeah, I should have known better. I mean, we knew we had a long week coming up. I already had a little bit of a sore throat as we were going into that game, but I was dumb enough to just let it go all out during the course of those 60 minutes. And then I wake up Sunday morning. I was like, oh no.
It's back now.
I don't have a voice.
Yeah.
It's back now. That's the good news. It's fully back. But if I were to have to lose it, I guess it went out to a good cause. Like TJ said, that was a pretty memorable thing, because it's not like we went to Alabama. It's not like we went to Georgia. It's not like we went to Ohio State. ASU's never good in football. And the fact that, one, they are, two, they're going to the playoff, and three, we got to see it at an iconic stadium with a bunch of our friends. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And we'll see what they do come the next couple weeks. Do I think they're going to win the Natty? No, but I will say the college football playoffs wide open this year. There's not really one dominant team, so we're pretty hyped about it.
Yeah, well, it begs the question, what was the better experience? Either this, watching them win the Big 12 championship, or hole 16 of the Waste Management Open. We're going to bring that one back.
Oh, that was your banger of a question last
Oh,
time.
yeah, it was.
It's close.
I'll
I would go the
say,
football. I'd go the football game.
yeah, same. Just
Okay.
because as cool as the Waste Management Open is, it's not like you had some hardcore rooting interest in one or two specific golfers while you're there. It's more just about hanging out with your friends and
Yep.
everything that goes along with it. But this again, like not in a million years did we think Arizona State was gonna be in the playoff here this year. I didn't think they were gonna win 6 games. They were a 3-win team last year. I didn't have any belief that they were gonna do much of anything,
Hmm.
and they shocked everybody. And you know what? Neither did anybody else because they were picked at the start of the year to finish dead last in the Big 12. So, yeah, I think both were great. I would put the ASU game ahead.
Okay. Sounds like TJ agrees with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not much to not much to dispute from that. I will say, in terms of thinking of like a one of a kind experience, it really like the football game was more of a one of a kind experience. But I don't think the Waste Management, after some of the stuff that happened this year, is going to be quite the same in the future. So I would say we got it at a pretty good time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think all of a sudden they're gonna start putting some regulations on the Waste Management Open. Not that we and our friends were the reasons way back when for these now probably restrictions, mandates, rules, whatever they put up moving forward. We were just like any of the other old 100,000 people going and you know hanging out with your friends and having a really fun time at it. But some of the if you go look up some of the stuff that happened at the Waste Management Open this past year, yeah, you'll probably figure out why there's about to be some rules set in.
Okay. Well, you guys caught it at a good time then before the regulations, and you got to have the full experience. So that's good. So my next question is specifically for Lyle. You did play-by-play broadcasting for ASU, amongst other places, while you were in college. I noticed you called some games while Spencer Torkelson was still playing for ASU, who's the current Detroit Tigers first baseman. So yeah, kind of what is that a weird feeling that like you called a baseball game for someone who's in the major leagues now?
Well, I'll let TJ hop in on this too in a minute because the two of us both did. We were calling games throughout our time at school and the Cape
Mhm.
League, et cetera, both of us. Is it odd? It is a little odd when you get to that point of, we're all at that time of our lives where there's now big leaguers and plenty of them that are younger than us, which is such a weird
Yeah.
feeling because growing up, it's like, well, you kind of literally look up to everybody that's in the big leagues because they're older than you. And now it's kind of an odd thing where they're your age, they're young, they're younger, etc. But I will say, was it was it cool to call games for a soon to be big leaguer back at ASU? Yes. Did we have any doubt basically since the first week of his freshman year that Spencer Torkelson was going to be in the big leagues? No, because in college, he was the best hitter I'd ever seen. He was legitimately unbelievable. I mean, you're talking bat to ball, you're talking approach, you're talking insane power, which is
Yep.
crazy because he wasn't highly recruited at all. He was like a low level recruit. He wasn't toward the top of their recruiting class that year or anything, but he comes in, he lights it up in the fall, he lights it up in the spring before the year started, and then he just took off right from there, and the rest is history. So I had no doubt that dude was going to be a big leaguer watching him hit. I am surprised that he struggled as much as he has since he's gotten to the big leagues. Sometimes that just happens to guys. He was rushed a little bit through the minors. Look, he's still young. He doesn't have that much big league experience. Could he turn it around? Sure. But yeah, to see him in college to focus on the positive was that's about as good of a college bat as you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And he was breaking Barry Bonds' records. So if that tells you anything about how good he was, beating anything Barry Bonds wise is pretty cool. And it stunk for him. You'd wonder what would be different for him if he wasn't a 2020 graduate like us. Because all
Mhm.
those guys he got drafted in that 2020 class, you've seen it with even Emerson Hancock. They just miss out on that development year in 2020, and it screws up everybody. And it stunk for all those guys down in the minor leagues that couldn't quite get there. I think I have a crazier one than Torkelson. Like Lyle said, Torque was a pretty obvious big leaguer, and there's been a couple other guys. Alika Williams, who's on that team too, is in the big leagues. I think it's just him, right? Not missing anybody.
Yeah, Hauber's getting close. Workman's working his way up. Did Dabovic get in the big leagues this year for the Giants?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'll
So
give you wrong on
anyway,
that.
these are names that most Mariners fans aren't going to know. There's a few other guys throughout the minors that are from that team that are getting close-ish to the big leagues, and a couple of them will probably get there. But yeah, there was some talent on that team.
There's one vivid one. Bryson Stott was in the first game I ever called. It was a Tuesday midweek game against UNLV. That was kind of crazy.
Okay. So, and I guess to kind of expand on that really quick, Lyle, the whole last year, I mean, you were pretty much at every single home game practically in the media box. So when Detroit comes there and Spencer Torkelson is playing in T-Mobile Park, I feel like that had to be a little surreal, being like, hey, I used to call your games and now I'm watching you play in the big leagues. Like, I think that's an even extra little step of that, I guess, connection there.
It's totally surreal. Although, I hope I have this right. I think when they came to town,
was he on the IL maybe, or maybe sent down?
No, he's
I
in the
think
minors.
I think that was the point in time Detroit sent him back down.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
I will say there are other years, to your point, Jake, where the Tigers have come to town. He's been on the team. I remember in 22, at the tail end of that year, he had a couple home runs after the Mariners had already clinched a playoff spot. And maybe in 23, he was here too. Yeah, but point being, to see that guy playing in your big league ballpark, yeah, it's crazy. Because again, we saw him when he was 18 and just basically getting his career started. And we watched him essentially before our own eyes become very aware of just how capable he was of unbelievable things when he was in college. So yeah, to see him in the big leagues is crazy. And that's why I still hope that even though it's been a rough go for him so far, he could still turn it around at some point, because the guy's upside is a 40 home run perennial all-star. I'm not saying he's going to get to that at that point, but once upon a time as a prospect, that's who he was. And that's why he was drafted #1. So yeah, I mean, it is pretty crazy.
Yep.
The coolest thing I think about seeing these guys in college, like, yeah, you get to call their games, you get to see them at their infancy, the jerseys they have, if they now they sell them, especially, it's almost like a collectible. It's really cool to have. But yeah, I mean, you just get to see the players grow up. Like, Lyle remembers some of the memories of early Torque. He was like this, he's this, I don't know if immature is the right word, but he didn't really have much of a filter. Like, I vividly remember Lyle and I called a game. They were playing the Ducks. After the game, after Torque hit, I think 2 home runs, he was laughing about how slow the Oregon pitcher was throwing.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
out loud.
We were in the press conference afterward, and he's like, I mean, yeah, that guy had nothing on his fastball, so it wasn't that hard to hit.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
and once you get to the big leagues, that filter comes on. You don't say something.
You're media trained. It makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. But yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I won't bore everybody with it, but TJ and I could probably do a name off if people wanted, of just guys we sat through and saw in college and in the Cape League for sure. I mean, I'll just throw one name out, but the team I call games for, as bad as they were the second year I was there, because TJ and I were there 2 years, like Jordan Westberg was on that team. So I knew him a little bit when he was in the Cape League. So just for an example, yeah, you see some of these guys go on after their time in college and become big league stars, not just big leaguers, but big league stars.
Yeah. Okay. Well, next one is also for TJ. So before Marine Layer became you and Lyle teaming up, the Marine Layer podcast was already a thing with, I'm assuming it was your brother Jason. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. What a pull.
So how did that?
Did you go back and listen to those episodes? Are they still there?
I think they are. I listened a little bit, but yeah, I just looked at the name Jason. I'm like, that might be. I'm assuming that you're related to him. So, but what was, I guess, the story with that and how that became yours and your brother's thing to Lyle?
I'm gonna clap for you, Jake.
Yeah,
that was a great poll. I don't think in the time we've done this podcast, anybody has been like, "Oh, you remember when you did that with Jason?" No, I'm always the one who brings that up.
Yeah.
I joked, since I was at this point, I was 4 months into journalism school, and we had all this equipment laying around, and Jason and I were 2 energetic 18-year-olds, and I wanted to talk about the M's. So, well, it was like once a week on Sunday nights, we would sit there and talk M's. We did, I can't remember exactly how many episodes.
It was in the 30s, like I think.
Yeah, like that sounds about right. And then it cooled off a little bit, and we had some other commitments and just stopped doing it. Like a lot of podcasts, you just sometimes you'll just lose interest. It wasn't very structured and stuff like that. When you don't, there isn't like really the accountability factor there. It sort of fades away. He was not a journalism major, so he didn't. It wasn't probably in his future to be doing a Mariners podcast. So I think it turned out okay.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I was a guest on a couple of those episodes.
You
back
co-hosted the last one. You co-hosted the last of the first version. Because I don't think Jason was doing it. No, well, what was it? The 2017? Was it? No, end of the 2017
At some point in time, we were all on. At one point, I was on with you and Jason. At one point, the two of us did one. But point being, yeah, I wonder how we'd feel going back and listening to that now. We'd probably cringe. But point being, I mean, I think TJ will say the same thing, and I'm sure he can laugh about it now. But that podcast was one of those things. I remember trying to do something similar when I was in my freshman year of school too, just finding ways to talk about the Mariners for whatever 10 minutes a week. It was one of those things where you put it out, maybe your parents would listen, maybe a couple of their friends would listen, but it's not like it was really for anybody getting out there that far. It was just a way, I think more than anything, it was just a way to let friends or brothers talk about something they were passionate about and just get reps talking into a mic, as we were just starting out in journalism and media. But fast forward to when we started this thing, like the thing that's now been going on the last 2 years that the two of us have done. The one thing that stayed is when we decided after the 22 season to start a Mariners pod. I remember vividly saying to TJ, I will say, I always liked that name. I know it never, that version of the pod never went anywhere, but I really like that name. We stuck with it, and I'm glad it's caught on with some people now. So
that's worked. Yeah, it's worked out pretty well. It's good for anyone watching and listening that's 18 and you just want to try something. Like, that's an example. Just try it. Like, that version might not work out, but you might have some fun doing it. You learn a couple of skills. You get better at talking. You get better at editing, and you might turn into one of the three of us, right?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, definitely you two more than me, but yes, I agree with you on that one.
We'll pump you up, Jake, too.
Hey, I'm still feeling good about where I'm at, so I'm all good there. So recently, TJ, you entered your tenure at 1240 KEJO, covering the Oregon State Beavers. So is the plan now that you are basically just going to move back to Seattle and be Marine Layer full time? Like, what's the plan going forward with that?
Well, the hope is to invest as much time into this brand, and we started a national baseball brand too, Bullpen Banner, a few weeks ago, and want to just allow a little bit more time while it's especially in the off season to invest a little bit more into those and take it to the next step. Like, I really think we've done some amazing things in the first couple of years, especially with the podcast that we've been able to do. I do see there's a lot more benefit in being significantly closer to the stadium and going to games and talking to people and interacting with players. And I couldn't do that in Corvallis. I loved that job. It was fantastic. Covering Division I college football is a pleasure, and not many people get to do it. Got 4 seasons. I thought it was it just kind of felt like time at this point that the pod is my future. The pod is my future. The Bullpen Banner brand is my future, and that being back here would be a little bit more beneficial. It's definitely a leap of faith for a number of reasons, but I'm really excited. I mean, I'm happy to be back, and I'm looking forward to continuing to grow this thing, and we could take it to the next level, and something we hadn't done before. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys do this upcoming season. You guys have already done so much. I mean, you guys have covered for Brock and Salk on 710 a few times. You're doing it this coming Friday, so if you're listening to this, you can catch them on 710 this Friday. I believe I have that right. So you guys have done that. I mean, obviously, like I said, Lyle was at pretty much every home game last year in the media booth, talking to players and all that. And then I guess another extension of that is you guys both attended the winter meetings this year in Dallas, which I think is a really cool next step in kind of just the media space of baseball. And the winter meetings feels like such a surreal place to be from a fan point of view. You're seeing top brass of teams, you're seeing maybe some players, you're seeing, the biggest national media members all gathered in one place as well. So can you guys just touch on kind of what your experience was like at the winter meetings this year?
when you see it for the first time, I think it is really cool to walk into a foyer and you see Ken Rosenthal and you see Jeff Passan, you see John Heyman, you see the whole MLB Network set with everyone up there. You don't recognize as many as the agents and as many as the scouts who walk around because they're not public facing people. There was not, I would say, as many players there this past year, but you walk past Nelson Cruz in the hallway and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
In fact, Jake, we were sitting waiting to walk out for winter meetings on the was it the first night, Lyle, or is it the first morning?
I think the first morning.
First morning, we were sitting there waiting to walk out. Nelson Cruz walks into our hotel across the street from the really nice one where he should probably be staying, and not us, the podcasters staying at the Courtyard Marriott across the street. But no, he walked in as Lyle was walking into the room, and I'm like giving him the wide eyes. I'm like, that's Nelson Cruz right next to us. Pretty crazy. But it is a sight to take in, to see all these people. And just getting to, even if you don't get to talk to all of them, just get talk to a couple of them. It's like checking off a couple of boxes every year of somebody has seen your face and has at least said your name when you say, nice to meet you. And you don't know how that's going to impact in the future. And you get to learn a lot and meet some new people along the way as well. And for every media person who has the resources to go to winter meetings, I think it's fantastic. I just wish the Mariners did more while we were there. They didn't do anything.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lyle.
You just had to throw John Heyman's name into that conglomerate, didn't you?
Well, he is a big national reporter.
I agree. He is.
Yes, he is. And I'll leave it at that. Anyway. Anyway, no, TJ's right. All-Star Week's cool because everybody's in the same place. But the thing about All-Star Week is people have different events going on at different places. Everybody's in the same area. But the thing about the winter meetings is everybody is literally in the same building and oftentimes on the same floor, from MLB executives to media to scouts to agents to players, etc. Like plenty of times during the week, you'll walk and you'll see Jeff Passan and he's face down in his phone and he's probably texting sources and he's probably trying to break something. Like you see that right in front of your eyes. It's pretty cool. In terms of, yeah, TJ said there wasn't a ton of players, but I will say, like, we saw Jorge Polanco there and we talked to him for a minute or two, which was cool. I'm sure he's there trying to look for his next opportunities and, you know, a few other things. Actually, he told us he was working out in Dallas this offseason, so it makes sense that he was nearby.
Yeah.
But yeah, you meet people and, like, you know, we briefly met Passan. We talked to John Morosi when he was there for a few minutes. I mean, those guys both have connections to 710, so that helped a little bit. But yeah, we met scouts, we met agents, again, we met a couple players. Who am I leaving out? Yeah, like Robert Murray, who breaks a lot of news. We met him. Yeah, like there's chances to meet a lot of people, not to mention obviously all the Mariners people that we got to see, and giving Ryan Divish's infamous hat might have been the moment of the whole meetings. But but I will say it's a really cool event, and for people that want to try and get out and they want to try and network with people and want to try and, you know, work their way through baseball media, it's a pretty cool event. I'm assuming we'll be back and going next year. At least I'm planning on it. So yeah, it's a fun thing to do. And it's a really cool chance to get yourself out there.
Yeah. So Jordan Schusterman told a funny story when he was on our charity stream the other night, which, you know, for anyone who's watching, there is a link in the description. You can still donate to the charity fund that I did with the Mariner Mojo guys for Toys for Kids. So just plugging that really quick. But he mentioned that when the draft was going on, or the draft lottery to be more specific, that he distinctly remembers seeing both of you running into the room very quickly after it was clear that the Mariners were going to be getting a top 6 pick. So yeah, I'm just curious what your thoughts were going on when you were running into I'm assuming a big room full of people and trying to hopefully not be like, I hope no one saw that.
So that is true. Everything Jordan said is facts. TJ and I are sitting there with one of our buddies from ASU who is one of the beat reporters for the Braves. His name's Justin Toscano. He covers it for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who's awesome, by the way. He's a phenomenal reporter and, again, longtime friend of ours. But obviously, we've seen the odds. You've seen the odds, Jake. Everybody's seen the odds. The Mariners won 86 games. Did I get that right? 86, 87, whatever. Games last year. And they were at low odds to pick anywhere near the top 5, even the top 10. So we're like, whatever. We'll see our phones. We'll see the picks count down. We'll see them get the 15th pick. And we'll say, great, that'll be that. All of a sudden, we're on Twitter because we'd been talking to our, a couple people, including our friend Justin, for a while. And we start to scroll and we're seeing the picks go down and down and down. And all of a sudden we see Joe Doyle. He says, buckle up, Mariners fans. Picks 1 through 6 have not been called yet, and the Mariners' name has not been called. And we're like, oh my God, is this seriously happening? And what's funny is this is a pretty big hotel, the Hilton Anatole, where this winter meetings was held. We're like, I think we got to go because we're doing a vlog for this whole thing, which we'll put out in the next few days. And we're like, yeah, we got to go. These guys are going to pick in the top 6. This is insane. Could you imagine if they actually got to number 1? So all of a sudden, we told our buddy Justin, yeah, we got to go. And we start sprinting down the hall and we're looking for wherever this lottery is. And we were kind of briskly walking / running for what felt like a minute or two on end while the commercial was going on to try to get in there in time. And finally, after enough walking down this hall that felt like it went forever, we finally get to the room. We walk in, we say, oh my God, this is the biggest room I've ever seen in my entire life. And that is not an exaggeration. We got in there and it looked like an airplane hangar. It looked like you could have walked another mile in that room. So we start fast walking toward the front where we're trying to get up there. And we can tell it's that commercial because nobody's talking, or the MLB Network guys aren't talking. And we get up there and we pass Jordan, who's sitting down, and he's been in there the whole time. Him and Jake were responsible media people and we're in there well before we were. Yeah. And we look at Jordan, we're whispering like, oh my God. We're like, is this actually going to happen? He's like, isn't this crazy? I was like, yeah, we just have to run from the other side of the hotel. He's like, well, you guys just got here? It's like, yeah, we just got here. Why in the world did we think the Mariners were going to pick in the top 6? Well, we're here now. So we get there and we're doing this whole vlog thing. And I think my words on the vlog is we have to whisper in that room as we're filming. We're like Ethan Holiday. Like as every pick goes down as we got there, and it's like 6, not the Mariners, 5, not the Mariners, 4, not the Mariners. We're like, this is insanity. And it got to 3, and obviously there's a little disappointment because when it gets that far, yeah, you think they actually could land the number 1 pick like the Guardians did last year with no odds. So it got to 3. There was a little bit of disappointment, but in the end, we're like, all right, that is pretty insane that they landed there of all places. Got all the important stuff on the vlog, and that was that. So yes, TJ can fill in any blanks, but Jordan's story is absolutely right. We had no plans to go to the draft lottery, but things changed in the blink of an eye.
Yep. Draft lotteries are not really high on my list in terms of excitement, unless that exact scenario that played out happens. So that's where we rated on the priority scale of what we wanted to cover. But it worked out. It was great. And we didn't miss it, which was the most important part. I was really worried we were going to miss it. Even just they were going to call it when we were in the back of that room.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Go ahead.
And now, you want to know something interesting? You know who was standing right at the front of that draft lottery? Right near the MLB Network guys of all people.
Over to our left.
Little winter meetings scoop here was John Stanton. And I'll tell you, the guy looked pretty happy when he saw them land that 3rd pick, which how could you not be, as evident from their odds to start it. And then the video the Mariners put out of their draft room when they're watching the picks go down, and they're cheering like every fan is after every pick goes by and it's not them. So yeah, he was in that draft lottery, and he looked like a pretty happy camper when they ended up with that number 3 pick. So yeah, he was there. He was at the winter meetings, and yeah, I guess he was intently watching the draft lottery. So little insight there.
Okay, well, that leads kind of into my next question now, outside of the winter meetings. And I asked Lyle this, I believe, on the stream, but I'm going to ask it again in a bit more of a broad sense. So, like I said before, Lyle spent pretty much almost the whole 24 season at the home games and interviewing players. And I know TJ did here and there when he was up from Corvallis. So I guess from a fan's point of view of the team, just kind of what it's like to be, I guess, in a much different point of view than a normal fan would be. Like, if I go to T-Mobile Park, I'm not on the field, I'm not seeing players or anything like that. I'm just in the stands like a normal person, basically. Whereas you guys have seen kind of more of this behind the scenes, I guess, view of the organization. So just kind of what is that like to be someone who is not only in the media booth, but is, literally standing a foot away from these players that we all talk about all the time, and being able to communicate with them. Just kind of, what is that feeling like for you guys?
So I would say my best perspective on this is the first thing is talking to the players. You like even just being friendly with them is helpful. You pick up on some little things, and I think Lyle could answer this a little bit better because he's been to probably 6, 7, 8 times more games than I have as a media member. But even like just some of the little things that you pick up on with players, whomever you decide to talk to or don't talk to, you, I mean, it just these things that when you're sitting in the stands, like you watch a player act a certain way and you think, yeah, it's totally normal. But when you're there 2, 3, 4 times a week as a media member and you sit there and you're just watching. Oh, we spend a lot of time at the ballpark. We're trying to get our interviews or social media, but there's a lot of time sitting around and waiting and a lot of time sitting around and watching of what players are doing and how they're interacting with fans, da 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 da. So like you learn a lot with in that aspect. I do also think you learn a lot just being around some of the other media members who are there every single day on all the road trips in the clubhouse every day. They know a lot. They know a lot more than we do. And just getting to sit there and converse with some of the best in the business and Ryan Divish, Adam Jude, Shannon Dreyer, Daniel Kramer, and such. Just asking questions about things. And it helps you feel a lot more informed when you're talking about the M's. I think I covered most of it. Lyle, did I miss anything?
Yeah, the talking with the media members thing is real. Now, obviously, the things we will often hear when having these conversations with people, it's not like we'll just turn around and say, well, let's just spill all that on the podcast. No, we don't do that.
Yeah.
But it does give us a better sense of we can formulate opinions a little bit and talk about certain things in certain ways on the pod from things we picked up on. And again, it could just be the opinion of a couple people, but I will say that, like TJ mentioned, that's people that spend enough time around the team as much as I do every single day. You absolutely pick up on things. But in terms of how your question started about being around these guys on an everyday basis, look, I would say if you were somebody that never really went to journalism school or had any media experience and kind of just parachuted in, it would be extremely nerve-wracking. And I say that because it was extremely nerve-wracking when we first started doing this. You felt totally out of place. You worry that people are going to look at you or like, who are these idiot 20-year-olds with a TikTok mic in their hands or whatever. But I will say what helped a little bit with that is the fact that TJ and I spent 4 years at school broadcasting games, covering these teams, writing stories, etc. And you were around these sports media environments, especially because we covered baseball specifically for 4 years at ASU, helped a little. Now it's different when it's like, did we want ASU to win? Of course, but did TJ and I grow up at 6, 7, 8 years old as diehard Arizona State fans? No, it was once we got to college. When you grow up as big of a fan of a team as we've been, there is an element to that too, where you have to not put it aside because everybody knows we are diehard fans of the team and that'll never change. But there's something you have to put to the side when you talk to these guys because obviously you're not going to go up as fanboys. You're there as like people in the media. So
Adults.
like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Adults. It's not, you're not autograph seekers, 100%. So I would say that like, bulking up the courage to like feel like you're not out of place and you're as much in your right to go converse with these guys or these coaches as everybody else in the media is definitely takes some adjusting. The first few times I was out there, I was much more a fly on the wall and probably keeping my head down when I was there. But as time goes on, I always had a hard time understanding this growing up when people would say, yeah, when you talk to them, they're just dudes because you're infatuated by these guys as a fan growing up, especially when you're a kid, when you're in middle school, high school, etc. And the few times I would meet guys growing up, it was always kind of nerve-wracking. But once you get used to it and you're in the setting enough times, it is very true. And I think both of us have started to realize that these guys are just dudes who happen to either hit a baseball really far or throw a baseball really hard. And otherwise, they're just normal like everybody else with interests just like everybody else. And that's what we've tried to bring out a lot of the time when we do these interviews with guys, is show that they've got interests that are pretty similar to the rest of the fan base. And we try to bring that out, whether it's guys talking about a Ted Williams home run being fake, which I'm sure goes on in group chats in baseball in plenty of places, maybe even in Boston, or guys that are interested in certain TV shows or fans of certain teams, etc. Like, these guys are huge fans of the NFL, a bunch of them. So you pick up on things like that. And once you talk to them and have things in place that either you know they're interested in or you've built some rapport with them on, you circle back to things like that. And that's how you further build rapport.
Okay. Are there any?
Hopefully I answered that in a good way. But yeah,
Yeah.
like in a nutshell, these guys really are just dudes. And the more time you're around them and the more time you spend even just like small talking with them for what could be 30 to 60 seconds, yeah, you just pick up on that more and more.
So as far as these player interviews, are there any that I guess, are there any that's any people or players that surprised you as like either being more personable than you would think, or more fun than you would think, like just anything like that? I don't want to get into like, oh, does anyone, been rude or anything like that. I don't want to be negative here. So just purely on the positive end of the spectrum, kind of just what were some of your favorite player interviews that you've done so far?
I'll say, even though the bar was already set high for Saucedo based off of what we heard, he blew the door off. He blew the ceiling off. Um, I will say my one of my favorites and one of our favorites to just talk to, and it came across in the interviews too, is Emerson Hancock. I mean, he is A plus plus. He's literally one of us. It's the most normal interaction that you could possibly think of for a big league baseball player. I mean, sometimes even Lyle and I would come away shocked talking to him about just like, it just felt normal, right? Did I describe that right?
100%. So yeah, like when you asked the original question, Jake, I was trying to do my best that I possibly could to generalize everything, but to have one specific example. Yeah, let's use Emerson Hancock. Dude is a diehard Georgia Bulldogs fan, and there's two people in TJ and I who love college football. We talked to him about college football. We talked about Georgia all the time. When we had Emerson on the pod, we spent a good handful of minutes on that. So that's one example. He loves to golf. He loves to, he's a huge ping pong player, which I'm super into. So like, there's things like that you just start to small talk with guys about, and you're like, yeah, they really are kind of just like us. And during our live stream the other night, that's one of many reasons I tried to get on Colby, who I know is not the biggest Emerson Hancock fan in the world, but am I going to convince Colby to change his mind? No, I know he's pretty set in his opinions, which is totally fine, and that's what makes Colby who he is. But that's why I tried to say, I just want you to know, Emerson Hancock might be the nicest dude in the entire organization, and he is not even close one of our favorite guys in the org, because he is awesome. What will his future be in Seattle? We still have to see, and like in terms of what he does as a starting pitcher, etc. But TJ and I root our tails off for that dude because he's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's just really interesting to get like that kind of insight because, like I said, from a fan's point of view, it's like we just kind of see these guys on our screen. Some people will be like, oh, these guys get paid a lot of money. So it just feels like a different kind of, I don't want to say aura per se, but just it's a different energy where you're just like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
these people are just feel like they must be so different and lead such a different life. But it's like, maybe in a fundamental way, sure. But it's like when it comes to their personalities, not so much.
Yeah, let me give you one more funny story, and then I'll list off a few other guys so people have a sense of like, I mean, all these guys are great, but just to list off a few of who we've really resonated with. But one quick little other Emerson Hancock story is, it was one of the games he was starting. TJ and I have told this on the pod, but for anybody who hasn't heard this, we'll tell it here. That he walks by us one day. We're out there pretty early. We're kind of just hanging out. And again, it's a start day. For anybody who doesn't know this, some of you I'm sure do, but it is very much a rule and a rule of thumb in baseball that people don't talk to starting pitchers on their start day, whether it's the other players, whether it's media people, etc. Like, starting pitchers don't get bothered the day that they start. Emerson walks by us in the dugout. We kind of see him out of the corner of our eye, but we're like, all right, he's starting. We're going to leave him alone. And he walks by and he's like, boys, who we getting on the mic today? And I was like, Like I was like, well, I honestly tried to be kind of short with them or whatever, and just in the sense like, yeah, we'll have to figure it out. It's kind of always a mystery or whatever. And he was laughing about it a little bit. And TJ kind of took it a step further. He's like, well, we'll get in trouble if we talk to you. And Emerson goes, what? Because I'm starting? He's like, that's not a rule. And I go, so then I jump back in and I go, listen, you want to hop on the mic on a start day? We're not going to be the ones to tell you no. I just want you to know that somebody in this org is absolutely going to rip us apart if we do. And he's like, all right, maybe it's a little bit of a rule, is what he says. So
Yeah.
there's like, and he was kind of laughing when he said that. He's like, all right, maybe it's a little bit of a rule, but yeah,
he didn't seem like he was getting too worked up over the start. I mean, it was just him, right? And his ability to interact with someone, with us, who he had met a couple of times, but you know, Lyle, I would say at this point we weren't like BFFs, but he was still like, that's the kind part of his personality where it's like he still makes you feel that way because you know that's just the kind of dude he is. And a lot of people would just have to take our word for it as fans, but I mean, even he would treat fans the exact same way.
Yeah,
I have no doubt.
Well, yeah. Okay. One more quick little thing in addition to that story, because I think we did a couple questions with him the next day, and this was the day that Logan Gilbert got announced as an All-Star. So there was a team meeting about it. Emerson was one of the last ones off the field, and he was happy to do it. He hops on with us. We get through a couple of questions with him. The last guy off the field was Bryce Miller, who's awesome too, by the way. But he's running in and he's kind of sprinting, and Emerson's right in the middle of these questions with us. And Bryce runs by and he's like, hey, E, he's like, you know, we got a meeting in like 60 seconds here, right? And Emerson's like, uh-oh. He's like, okay. He's like, I don't want to get in trouble, guys. I got to run. It's like, we're like, yeah, like go. Like, we don't want to get you in trouble. Like go run. But he runs in, and then later on he sent us a DM. He's like, yo, like, he's like, my bad. It's like, I totally forgot we had a meeting. That's on me, or whatever. And he said, happy to finish those questions another time. Also, like, he was like, happy to come on the pod if you guys want me on the pod or whatever. We're like, great. So that's like, I would say right around that weekend is when things even kickstarted more with him, where we started to get much friendlier, and having him on the podcast certainly helped. Yeah. But yeah, like, and obviously that was all built up, and him being willing to do that was built up from us over some time, even before that, getting to know each other a little bit, but like over spring training a little bit the previous year, etc. But that's just a peek behind the curtain of like somebody on this team who's just an A+ dude who is very easy to root for. Quickly here, I know we spent a lot of time on this, but
you're good.
Andres Munoz might be also one of the nicest people you will ever meet. Generally, not even just baseball players, just people. He's another. Matt Brash is unbelievably nice. He's got that total Canadian nice to him. Bryce Miller's awesome. Like TJ said, Sauce is great. Gabe Spire is one of our favorites too. Like there's so many, but like guys we've had really good like interactions with and really enjoy interviewing. Those guys, I will say though, if you ever need a viral clip, you should talk to JP Crawford if you can get him to do it, because that guy, that guy isn't afraid to hold back if you get him on the right topic. I'll say that.
Okay, very, very good to know. I was about to ask you about position players because I noticed you only named pitchers. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, you know, I would say something we learned is that pitchers are a little bit easier to get on the mic than position players are, because position players on a day-to-day basis have the same routine to get ready to play in a game every single day. Pitchers are not quite that. They have a little bit more downtime. Yeah. It has overall led to, I would say, like we've just spent more time talking to pitchers than we have to the position players, which you know, it's understandable. Like I would rather them play well than talk to us on a mic. Now, it would be great if they just did both, but you know, if I had to choose one, I would probably rather win more baseball games.
I think as Ty France once famously said in an interview, not with us, but somewhere else during spring training about the pitchers, he's like, these guys don't do anything. He's like, so they have more time to talk. And now I think Ty was referencing spring training, not all the time, but yeah. So
fair enough.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool to build some of those connections. And again, for anybody that wants to peek behind the curtain, there's a lot of really awesome dudes on this team. So
yeah. So before we get into our last segment here, I'm gonna, you know, we're all Mariners content creators, so I am sure people might be expecting me to be like, hey, so what do you think about this thing that's going on in the Mariners organization? I think we can all agree that all these Mariners organization topics have been pretty much repeated ad nauseum in this space. Everyone's answered the Castillo stuff, all that. So I guess I'm just going to open it up to you guys as far as, do you guys have any hot takes or anything you just want to get off your chest when it comes to what the org's doing this off season, and then we can move on.
I have a hot take. Okay. And this is not a good mindset, I would think, for the Mariners to take on, but I think this would be an objective fact. If they have so when we look at the Mariners roster last season, a good portion of the roster, especially the hitters, all had bad to career worst years all at the exact same time, or at least started really poor, which is not good and not helpful for winning baseball games. If that's the opposite, I think this team wins the division running away, because this AL West now stinks. Astros are selling off. The Angels are mediocre. The A's are mediocre. And the Rangers are mediocre. There's no team that you are definitively even... I don't even know if it's that close at this point. Maybe the Astros still, but if the Astros, who've been rumored to still be trading away pieces to shed some salary, like Framber Valdez, and they've already lost Alex Bregman, and who are you competing with in the division? You are essentially like a combined good Cal Raleigh and 2022 version of Julio Rodriguez away from winning the division. You don't have to trade a single starter. Sign a reliever, have your entire lineup do the opposite of what they did last season, and things work out pretty well.
Yeah. To that point, if JP hits the way he did in 23 to add on to it, if Garver hits the way he was signed to hit, yeah, a lot looks different. Now, I still think they need to go do a lot, but to TJ's point, if that were to happen, if that were to happen, you never know. You know what? Let me piggyback off of your hot take before I drop one of my own. Is there a world, looking at this AL West, where, let's say you're right, let's say the Mariners win the division. Is there a chance the Oakland A's could actually come in second place? Here's the thing, right? They had a good second half. They have real guys in that lineup. Rooker's a stud. Lawrence Butler's a stud. They signed Severino. I don't know if they're going to do anything else this winter, because and they still don't have a very good pitching staff. But I don't know.
Spriggs, right? Jeffrey Springs.
Oh, yeah, they traded for him too. Yeah. Who was really good in Tampa. See, this is what I mean. Like, is there a world? I'm not saying these guys are going to go win the World Series, but is there a world those guys could come win 84 games this year? I don't know. I feel like it's not the craziest idea in the world, which feels crazy to say. I think their pitching
is like a little too shaky to really, I would say, to get them into that 80 mark. But I think the lineup itself, the offense is solid. I mean, it's not fantastic or, anything that's not blowing anyone away.
Right.
But it still did fairly well. So if they could shore up that bullpen and shore up the starting rotation a bit, I think they could be legitimate players in that, like, maybe not next year, but I mean, when you're looking, 2026, maybe even 2027, maybe watch out, because who knows how the AAA stadium is going to fare for them. I mean, is that going to make their offense even better? Is it, I mean, we have no idea what that's going to look like. So I think this year is going to be a really good, I guess, barometer for that to see how they do.
Yeah, maybe it motivates them too, because I'm sure everybody's writing them off, and for some very fair reasons this year. But you never know. You never know if they use that as fuel or whatever. Hot take that I have. It's not that hot, but I've been talking about it recently, and I'll drop it here. But if the Mariners are forced to trade Luis Castillo, and let's use that term very firmly here, they would be forced. They like by the powers above. Yes. They should not have to trade anybody out of this rotation. The fact they're being essentially forced to is sad. Yep. But if they are forced to trade Castillo, I would like to see it be for Kobe Mayo. And I'm sure there's people out there that want to see Castillo get traded for somebody that's a lot more proven than that, which is fine. I get it. Maybe you want Tristan Casas. Maybe you want Nico Horner. Maybe you want more than that. The reason I say Kobe Mayo is, I will throw this out to the people. What on earth are the Seattle Mariners going to do at third base? Everybody knows they're not signing Bregman, and the opinions are pretty split on the idea of Alec Boehm, who the Phillies are asking for absurd things for, by the way.
Yep.
If neither of those things is going to happen, again, legitimately, who is upgrading this roster at third base? So the reason I say Kobe Mayo is, if you get him in here, he is cheap. He is inexpensive. He has 6 years of club control. And the guy is one of the best prospects in all of baseball who's as good a bat in the minors as you'll find. He's got 35 home run upside, has absolutely tore it up at every level of the minor leagues, and is just about big league ready. He's just blocked by that entire Orioles roster because the offense is so good. If you were to do that, right, and you get Mayo to fill third base, you get Castillo's money off the books. This alleged budget, again, let me say it again, the fact there's a budget this winter is stupid and ridiculous, but there is. So if that budget goes from $16 million to 40, if you get rid of Castillo's 24 million bucks, who's to say you can't go sign Christian Walker for 20 million bucks a year to play first? And then trade for Nico Horner and his 12 million bucks to play second. Or if the Cubs aren't going to trade Horner, I'll get even a little crazier than that. Who's to say you can't trade for Mayo, sign Walker, and if they just expand the budget a tiny little bit for the right guy, you sign Santander to be your DH and Garver's the backup catcher. Maybe Santander plays a little bit of outfield a couple times a week. Then all of a sudden, if you're the Mariners, your lineup goes Robles, Julio, Cal, Santander, Randy, Walker, and the potential of an all-star caliber third baseman at some point, and Kobe Mayo with 6 years of control. I kind of like the way that roster shakes out. So of everybody that they could trade Castillo for, that's the guy I look at because it's a real inexpensive solution at third base for a guy that has gotten comps to Austin Riley.
Now it's a risk because I know a good portion of the Mariners fan base would not enjoy thrusting a prospect into the spotlight to be your everyday starter. But at this point, like we're going to just continue to say, the Mariners have painted themselves into a corner. The Mariners are cornering the Mariners in this scenario. Therefore, to get the best possible roster, you're going to have to be creative and you're going to have to make a trade. Some people hate, but that's just the point we're at right here. It's not, it's honestly like, it's a hot take. It's not a terrible idea. There are some worse ones. Just ask some New York Mets fans or Boston Red Sox fans who are trying to trade for Luis Castillo this week.
Yeah, like again, if the Mariners didn't have problems with their budget, not even problems, sorry, if it wasn't self-imposed, if they didn't have self-imposed budgets, I would never vouch for trading an all-star caliber starter for a prospect. No way. But it's the idea of who the prospect could be and paired with what you could then turn around and do with that money. And if you go sign two guys that every Mariners fan would be over the moon for at this point, and Walker and or Santander, the upside of that is 3 middle of the order bats. So that's what I'm kind of dreaming on. And that's what I keep coming back to. So yes, call it a hot take if you want, but there's the take.
There we go. Well, that's our talk for the Mariners organization and the off season that we're going to do. So we're going to end this out. If you guys have seen, Lyle and TJ's content, when they do these player interviews, usually they do stuff like, what's your top 5 favorite ballparks and stuff, those types of prompts. So I've created a prompt for Lyle and TJ that's along these lines. So I'm going to have you guys blind rank these 5 former Mariners and former ASU alumni. So they played for the Mariners and they played for ASU or went to ASU.
This is going to be a great list.
So,
boy.
So, okay, Jake, do you want us to do this together in conjunction or separately?
You guys can do it separately. How about that? Since we're blind ranking, you guys don't have to come to agreement on a specific spot or anything. So, yeah. Okay. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So we're going to start it out with Willie Bloomquist, who played for the Mariners from 2002 to 2008. Had a 14-year career in total, but only played for Seattle for 9 years. Ended up with his Seattle tenure, ended with the average slash line of 259, 314, 318, and amassed 3.0 B-WAR in those 9 years. So where do you guys want to put Willie Bloomquist?
And now head coach of the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Oh, there you go.
I will put Willie at there. We'll see how well you did your homework, Jake. And I'm just giving you a hard time because this has been really fun and an awesome conversation. But if there's somebody on this list that I'm thinking of, like 100 out of 100 in terms of like what you came prepared with this segment. So
okay,
I'm leaving a spot open. I'm leaving a spot open, Lyle.
Yeah, okay. So am I. So I'm gonna put Willie at 4.
Ooh, okay.
I'm gonna put Willie at. I'll put him at 3.
Okay. Well, I feel like a little bit of pressure's on me now to produce this person that you're hoping for. So I guess next one, we're going to go with Mike Leake, He pitched for the Mariners from 2017 to 2019, so only 3 years.
Man.
Amassed 4.0 BWAR, 4.16 ERA in general, 354.2 innings pitched, and 246 strikeouts for the Mariners in those 3 years.
And one infamous punch thrown in the Mariners clubhouse. Isn't that right, Tej?
Yeah, I'll put him at 4.
Okay.
I'll flip it with TJ. I'm trying to think who else could be on this list.
Well, I know one that should be number 1.
Yeah.
Gosh,
I'm just trying to think. Are we going to get somebody better than Mike Leake? All right, I'll go. I hate that TJ and I are going the same route here, but yeah, I'll put Leake at 3.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to Ken Phelps, who was I believe hitter for us from 1983 to 1988. Played with the Mariners for 6 years, amassed 9.6 BWAR in that span, hit 255 home runs and an average of 145 OPS plus with the Mariners during his tenure. So, I mean, it's a solid bat. So,
Jake, are you a Seinfeld fan by chance?
I'm not. No,
you're not. Okay.
No.
And TJ isn't really either. I've had to make him aware of this, but my family's all big fans of Seinfeld. There's a famous scene in Seinfeld involving Ken Phelps, which is George Costanza's dad allegedly got to sit and meet George Steinbrenner. Now, they never show Steinbrenner's face in the show. The camera's like, he's sitting on a chair. You can't see him. It like, that's how the scene goes. But the idea is like, he's talking to George Costanza's parents. And I think they like, I'm not as big a fan as some of my other family members, but I do like it. I think he was there to kind of give his condolences because they were grieving some loss or something in the show. But George Costanza's dad's kind of a nut job. And all of a sudden he breaks up the condolences. He goes, because he's a big Yankee fan. He goes, "What the hell did you trade Jay Buhner for?" Or whatever. He's like, this guy can hit 40 home runs, rocket for an arm. He's like, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Because in real life, Jay Buhner was traded from the Yankees to the Mariners for Ken Phelps. And George Steinbrenner in the show says, "Look, all my baseball people told me Ken Phelps. And who Ken Phelps went on to be a Yankee, not do much the rest of his career. And as we all know, Jay Buhner was phenomenal for 14 seasons as a Mariner. So Ken Phelps does have a little bit of Mariner fame. I'd say for that reason, even more than his bat. Anyway, I've dragged this out long enough. I will put Ken Phelps at 2.
Okay. So
I don't have as much to say as Lyle, but I will also put him at 2.
Okay. So basically, I want to recap. Lyle's has 1 and 5 left. And TJ, I believe, also has 1 and 5 left. Okay. Yeah. So next one, we're going to do Mr. Mariner, Alvin Davis, from 1984 to 1992. Played 8 years with Seattle, amassed 20.1 BWAR, 128 OPS plus, 160 home runs, 160 home runs. So where are we putting Mr. Mariner, Alvin Davis, who's in the Mariners Hall of Fame?
If your name is Mr. Mariner, you have to be number 1.
Okay.
He is number 1. And just to continue to paint the picture for people, for some more people in the org, I know we've rattled off a ton of guys who we say, oh, incredibly nice, one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. Yeah, Alvin Davis could not be more in that category. He's almost like, it's unbelievably nice. Like, you would be your jaw would fall on the floor at how just friendly, welcoming, like awesome he is with everybody. So like, he's pretty cool. Yes, he is 1. He's number 1.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so you guys both have your 5s left. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to render Don Wakamatsu to the number 5 spot, who was the manager.
We guessed wrong.
The manager for the Mariners from 2009 to 2010, amassed a record of 127, 147. So it didn't go very well. So yeah. So who were you guys hoping I would name?
It actually, Jake, I think that still works out because Don Wakamatsu wasn't a very good Mariner.
No, to be fair, yes.
That 2010 team should like go in history of just how incompetent they were.
Yeah, you guys did, I think, fairly well on the actual performance side of it, so not bad. So who are you hoping I named?
The player we were waiting for is ASU legend Tuffy Goswitch.
Tuffy Goswitch. Okay, and he was a Mariner as well?
Yeah, he was about as bad of a baseball player as you will ever see on a diamond.
Okay.
TJ's got 2 people on his real baseball hate list. It's Abe Toro and then Tuffy Goswitch, who, by the way, I think now does some stuff in baseball post-career because he was at the winter meetings. We were 5 feet from him at one point, and I'm like, Oh, TJ, I think we got to go up and say what's up. You can tell them all the nice things you've said about him.
Oh,
And
whoa. Let's not alleviate you from this.
okay, fine, that we both said about him. TJ infamously says he might be the worst Major League Baseball player I've ever seen. So
Okay.
And like there's nothing in his defense online. I mean, he was bad.
Okay. Well,
he wasn't even a Mariner that long, but in the time that he was, it was it was a tough watch.
okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, hey, we got the game out of the way. I think you guys did pretty good on that as well. But yeah, that's it for my questions. So, once again, I appreciate you guys being on the channel and taking the time out of your evening to talk about your experiences and creating Marine Lair and what it's become today. Obviously, you guys are I would consider, one of the big dogs in the Mariner space. So, I can't wait to see what you guys do in 2025 for the whole season. Any last parting words you guys want to give? Any other plugs, anything like that?
Timer's on, Jerry. Make a trade. And thanks for having us on, Jake. This has been great.
Yeah, and keep doing your thing, Jake. Stuff you're putting out is awesome. I think you've played a huge role and factor in bringing a lot of this Mariners community together and doing a lot of joint events, which has been awesome. The event you just put together to raise all that charity money is super cool. Even if it's not going to the Kyle Tucker GoFundMe to get him to be a Mariner, no. it is still going to a very, very good cause, which is Rick Riz's Toys for Kids Charity Foundation, which is awesome that you put that all together. So huge credit to you. Again, thanks so much for having us on, and keep doing your thing too, because you're killing it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So yeah, once again, you guys can find the donation link down in the description. I'd appreciate it. You have until the end of the month. We are less than $500 away from our ultimate goal of $2,500, which is really awesome. Goes to a really good cause. But once again, thank you to Lyle and TJ for being on. That's going to be it from me in this one. And I will see you guys in the next.